Okay. Okay, we're back, guys. Sorry about that. Okay, so as I was saying, man, I'm so excited to dive into this with you. Thanks again for being willing to come live with me and have a conversation about the power of art and epigenetics and vibrational medicine and your experience with it, and also your background in epigenetic therapy. So,
Yes.
and it,
What I was just going to say that it's like bathing in love when I talk with you, and
yeah,
so I'm getting a lot of I'm getting a lot of energy flowing through me, and it feels good. It's nourishing. It's bathing my cells in high vibrational frequency. What more can a guy ask for?
I know, right? Well, we were talking earlier in the first take video that just the power of even having this conversation and our collaboration and work together and just discovery and creation and that it had like sharing our shared experiences and how they complement each other and serve each other raises the frequency. And you know that it's like the question that came to me and just listening to what you just said was, how about just being on purpose to raise your frequency, right? Like being in alignment with what you're here to do as a soul and the work that you're here to bring forth and be a conduit of, how that in itself, just the alignment of that could be such a potent effect on ourselves. Yeah.
Well, you know that we all play a very integral part in the holographic universe. We're all connected and so forth. And therefore, when we get involved in conversation or action that is one of coming from the heart, compassion, creativity, allowing, trusting, embracing joy and being appreciative of beauty. Those are all high vibrational frequencies.
Yeah.
And the more we bring that into our consciousness, the more that we are bathing ourselves in abundance, in health, in vibrancy, in radiancy, and more our cells are being nourished to the optimum level that we are at. So
Absolutely.
I look forward to it. It's what brings me joy.
Yes.
It really does. I don't know, I think you probably feel the same way, and I think many other people do. When you reach a certain level of awareness, not to separate myself or you from anyone else, but
Right.
just as an observation, when you reach a certain level of awareness, the mundane, everyday conversations, routines don't cut it anymore.
Right. Yeah, they're kind of flat.
And you
Like yeah, they can either lower or raise your vibration.
and I find that I'm take a lot of alone time
Yes.
to be with myself. And I don't really want or crave or need anything outside of me to bring me fulfillment. The fulfillment has to come.
But then,
That's the reality. The buying into the illusion of what's happening outside of you is just that. It's temporary. And if you're going to base your happiness or joy on what is happening, then you're subjected to what's happening. You're like a yo-yo,
chaos.
up and down, up
Yeah,
and down.
absolutely. And when we attach on identifying with what's happening too, right? and define it and attach to it and identify with it, then we become it and we lose our center.
We lose our true identity. And so my work, and I say it's work because I have to be consciously aware, and I've been training my mind to alert me when I'm unplugged from source energy. And the mind is such a great imposter, and it sneaks in there. You don't know it's playing, but it pulls you away, and then all of a sudden you say, "Uh-oh, right? I don't feel right about this. It just doesn't feel good." So this is where I've been going lately, Melissa. I've been going more to feelings than I am going to mind. And I'm training myself more and more to navigate by my instrument panel, my body, that'll dictate to me if I'm on the right course or not, rather than my mind telling me what's better or worse or good or bad, or this is going to work and this is not going to work. And it's a big leap of faith. You know what I'm saying? It's abandoning all that you ever have been taught and going into the uncertainty and trusting the process.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. And I have a lot more I want to say about that. But before, I want to share with the group and everyone watching, will you tell us a little bit about your definition of epigenetics and vibrational therapy, vibrational medicine, and how, tell us your story as well, and how you discovered this breakthrough and this work, this approach, because it's so cutting edge. And I think, a lot of people want to understand, myself included. I'm still learning, about the power of my work and art and vibrational medicine and the long-term effects it has on us individually and collectively. So I'd love to hear from you a little bit about your background, your story, and how you found epigenetics, and you could also define epigenetics as well.
Okay, I'll see if I can be concise. First of all, discovering epigenetics changed my life completely. And it happened divinely, like everything happened divinely. I found myself headed up to San Francisco one day with my wife, Laura, to attend a workshop by Dr. Bruce Lipton. And he is a very well-renowned cell biologist, taught in Yale, I believe. He's a pioneer in what's called epigenetics. And not too many people knew about epigenetics at that time. It was a new science that Bruce was bringing to the forefront and melding it with spirituality. And Bruce was far from a spiritual person when he first got involved in his cell biology. But today, if you speak to him or you watch any of his videos or attend any of his workshops, you realize how important the spiritual aspect of life is to living to your fullest potential, and how it affects the biology of our body. And so that inspired me, meeting Bruce and spending some time with him. And when I got back home, that's all I could think about. And I did a lot of research. And so I had a practice in Malibu at that time, at the Malibu Healing Center. And I decided to experiment, bring in what I'm learning into my practice. But first, I want to let you know what epigenetics is, or my definition of epigenetics as I see it. It's any influence outside of the cell membrane. Okay, you got the nucleus of the cell, then you have the cytoplasm, and then you have the membrane. And within the nucleus lies the chromosomes, and inside the chromosomes lies the DNA. So epigenetics deals with how the DNA expresses itself, or how it communicates functional information to your cells, to tell the cells what to do, how to perform. And Bruce has discovered that if you take out the nucleus of the cell, you take out the brain of the cell, so to speak, that the cell still lives, it still functions, it still does everything except reproduce. So he came to the awareness that it's not the nucleus of the cell that makes the difference. It's the information that the nucleus reads, or the DNA reads, in the morphogenic field, which is the energy field that surrounds every cell. And in that energy field holds consciousness. Consciousness is information, creative intelligence. And that consciousness can be altered by your thoughts, by your perception, by your attitude, by your beliefs, by your conditioning. And it also can be altered by external environmental toxins, pollution, noise, pesticides, GMOs. Okay? And so that's something that we're subjected to in this world constantly. So by becoming aware of what it is that can influence the morphogenic field, which is the field that holds the information, okay, you have control over your own destiny, where your genes, which is what people had thought in the past, determined your fate. That no longer is the case. Okay? The genes or the DNA are just blueprints that hold information based on what the morphogenic field is vibrating at, because it's all energy, it's all frequency. And Tesla and Albert Einstein all scientifically have shown us to be the case. So anything that influences your vibrancy, your radiancy, your performance in a biological sense that's outside the cell is an epigenetic influence. And that's basically what epigenetics is. You follow what I'm saying? Did I make myself clear?
Absolutely. I was just writing a couple notes.
I just try to keep it simple. Of course, it's more scientifically involved and all that, but I don't think we need to go into the biology of it.
Definitely. We can have some more conversations about this too, but tell us a little bit, like, what were you doing when you went to this conference with Bruce Lipton? Like, what kind of work were you doing, and how did this discovery impact your work ultimately?
Well, once I realized the magnitude of the awareness of how we could influence our own cells simply by our choices and our way of perceiving life, and perceiving our experiences primarily is what I want to say. And it depends on our relationship that we have with our experiences, how we see ourselves in relationship to the experiences. So in the past, I came from the apparel industry in New York City. I was in the garmento business. And it's a whole different world that is other than honest or pure. And And my experiences all reflected my perception, okay, of the experiences. And so when I realized how important it is to perceive the reality of a situation rather than the illusion of the situation, meaning is what is real and what is made up. And when I say made up, I mean a story that the mind creates to keep you away from joy, to keep you separated from yourself, okay? And I started to really pay attention to the mind. And I but I studied the Course in Miracles for years.
Yes, me
to
too.
get to know the ego, because that's who lives with us, and he's a tenant or she's a tenant within us. We better get to know the ego, and that way we know when the ego is playing or when the ego is sleeping. Okay, and so I really got to know that little voice and distinguish the difference between the mind and when the heart speaks to you. Because once you understand that emotions and feelings are two separate things, then you could pinpoint what it is you want to change. And in the book, The Art of Happiness.
Yeah, tell us your definition. Because I think a lot of people see these differently. Tell us your definition of feelings and your definition of how do you distinguish between the two, feelings and emotions?
Well, it's very simple for me now. You know, I spent a lot of time figuring that out. And what it came down to is emotions are always associated with a story: sadness, jealousy, anger, resentment, okay? These are emotions. There's a story attached to them. And everyone has their story, their reasons, okay? Reasons, stories are all based from the mind. Mm-hmm. I call it the Hans Christian Andersen of the body. It's the greatest storyteller in the world. We believe everything it says. And then, like you said, we become what it is that we identify with. And so, no one went to the heart and determined that the heart is responsible for your feelings of joy, of love, of beauty, of creativity, of passion, of compassion, of trust, of allowing. These things that I just mentioned are high vibrational words compared to jealousy, sadness, anger, resentment. You can feel the difference just in the vibrational frequency of the word.
Yeah.
Okay, and that makes you feel. So when you come from the heart and you come from feelings, it feels good. It's nourishing to the body. When your mind is engaged, it doesn't feel as good. In fact, there's conflict. And conflict is nothing other than the pull between the mind and the heart.
Beautiful. I love that. Such wisdom. Thank you. I always say that, it's interesting. I haven't thought about it that way, the distinguish between emotions and feelings. I like that perspective. And
otherwise, it's like chicken soup.
Yeah?
It's otherwise, if you don't know the feelings versus the emotions, it's like mixing a soup with all ingredients in it. You can't pull one out or the other one out because it's all one. So It makes your life very difficult to choose, to know where you are at that time. Mm-hmm. And the Dalai Lama said in his book of Art of Happiness that if you want to change anything, the first thing you have to do is know what it is you want to change.
Yes. Very true.
So that is really important. To be aware, that's what consciousness is. Consciousness is nothing other than being aware of the moment that you're in. And I broke it down to even simpler terms of determining between the mind and the heart. Ready?
Hmm?
Everything that comes from the mind, without question, this is murderous. Everything that you comes from the heart
Great
is
separation.
loving.
Yeah.
So one is unloving, the mind, and one is loving,
I
the
love
heart.
that. That's a really easy way of discerning in the moment.
Exactly. You don't
I
have
love
to
it.
read books. You don't have to go to workshops. You don't have to spend hours meditating.
Right.
Use your body as a dashboard to know if it feels good or if it doesn't feel good. If there's a
Yeah.
conflict or if it's flowing in the process of unfolding into the joyousness of creation. And the reality is love,
Love.
where the illusion is everything other than love.
I love it. Well, I always say that, like, emotion is energy in motion. And that makes sense with your
Yeah.
perspective because energy, it's like as creator beings, we channel our creativity with our thoughts. So if you want
Yes.
to get your thoughts behind your energy, you want to be discerning, right? What energy you're putting into motion. Is it loving and of the heart, or is it?
And you know what the basis is of the whole thing? Like in the solar system, what's the basis of our solar system? The sun, right? Everything revolves around the sun. Well, everything that revolves around love is our reality. Everything else is the illusion. And why do I say that? Because you ask yourself, well, what is reality? Because reality to one is not the same to the other. Well, that's a
Right.
personal truth. That's a personal reality. I'm not talking about that reality. I'm talking about the reality of consciousness. Okay? The sun, the one that brings in the nutrients, the one that brings in the nourishment to life is love. Because without love, we fade. And if you look at love, you realize it vibrates, and it's been calibrated at 528 hertz, which is basically the scientific viewpoint of what love is. And therefore, I base all my thoughts in relationship to vibrating at the highest level of frequency. And something that disappears, something that goes and comes, something that maybe shows up or doesn't show up is an illusion. That's the definition of illusion. But love is something that always was, that always is, and always will be the same. It doesn't change. It's eternity. And that is what I look at as reality.
Yes,
That's the
very, very
coordinates of reality.
rooted in A Course in Miracles perspective too. I love that. And yeah, there's something I was going to say about that, but I lost it. Maybe it'll come back. So tell us, so what were you doing? I still want to hear, what were you doing professionally when you came into this work with Bruce Lipton, and how did it change the way that you work with people? And tell us a little bit about, so after that, you weren't doing apparel when you met in Malibu, right? You were organic healing. So what type of
I tried doing both for some time, but the universe, no. It's all or nothing, Mana. You can't have one foot in one world and another foot in another world and expect to have your potential reach its fullest. It doesn't work that way. So I made a conscious choice to leave the material world behind me, to leave the apparel industry and all my entrepreneurships behind me and go 100% into the healing arts arena. And after I met Bruce, many things happened to me in the sense that I started meeting other people that took my hand and introduced me to sound therapy, vibrational frequencies,
Yes.
Reiki, you know, you name the modality, I was exposed to it. And like anything else, you gravitate to what feels good and you leave behind what doesn't. And over a period of time, I integrated all my awareness and knowledge of the vibrational frequencies or for vibrational medicines into my work as a hypnotherapist. And as a hypnotherapist, what I did is I addressed the subconscious mind, but I didn't address the subconscious mind with information. I brought in spirit to the subconscious mind.
Yes. Yeah, it's the only way to heal, right?
And I brought the light to the darkness. And so that illuminated, I call it the illuminated mind. Okay, because the program that's playing are coming from a fine-tuned instrument, spirit, and it's guiding you in a direction that the frequencies prior that were coming from the mind were taking you away from. You follow me? Mm-hmm. And so when one starts to embrace spirit at a subconscious level, everything changes because you're coming from a higher vibrational frequency in every one of your thoughts and, more important, your actions.
Yeah.
Because your actions play a very big part in it all. And I've also realized to understand spirituality, to understand the way things work, to conceptualize it, to intellectualize it, to become aware of the difference between emotions and feelings doesn't really mean anything. It's half the equation. Yeah. So I created something called applied epigenetics. So what we want to do is we want to integrate it and apply it in our life, and that's the way things will change. Something is not going to do anything. And people used to come to me.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I want to hear
what you were saying.
Well, no, I was just
people used to come to me and I used to say, and nothing is changing, man, and nothing is moving, nothing is happening. I know it all, but I asked them, are you applying it? Are you taking the leap of faith? Because that's what you have to do. You have to go into the void, into the uncertainty, and trust the divinity and the unfolding process in order to embrace it and embody it in your life. Absolutely. It doesn't come from reason, because you got to remember, the mind doesn't want you to go there. So the mind will give you every reason not to go there. You'll start procrastinating. You'll start finding things that will take you away from your goal. Because the mind is fearful of its job, of its life. I'm talking about the ego mind, not the mind that common sense. Okay? And so you really recognize what a character this guy is that lives inside of you that is nothing other than trying to make you miserable in a planet of duality. Because it has the tools to work with.
When I taught in the studio for years in intuitive painting, painting as a meditation, that was how I first started out using arts for transformation. And one of the things we used to work a lot with the inner critic, which is that aspect of the mind that shows up in any creative project or process. Doesn't matter if you're creating a relationship or a home or a meal or whatever, or where you're expressing yourself, that voice, that inner critic voice, right, comes in, and its only job, right, it's the amygdala, whatever, in the brain that Seth Godin talks about, which I love, that fear-based, amphibious mind. Its only job is to disconnect you from the present moment. from your creative potential, from your creative power in that moment, and disconnect you from being connected to source, from being connected, really. So I love that, because when we remember that that's its job, and that's what it's trying to do, and that it amps up, like you were saying, it amps up when you're about to have a breakthrough, where you're about to have a shift in consciousness, where you're about to meet a goal, where you're about to create something or manifest something really big. That voice is going to get super amped up, and all the fear and the self-doubt is going to get really, really loud and try and knock you off your goal, your vision, your focus.
Exactly. I always know that when it's going down for the third time, it tries its hardest, and you really have to be on the ball to catch it in its play. And
Yeah.
I actually make it a game. It's kind of like hide and seek, and when I catch the ego, I feel great, and sometimes, guess what? The ego taps me on the shoulder and says, I got you. But I learn from it, though. I learn from it, from it all. In fact, everything that I'm experiencing, I look at as an opportunity to grow spiritually.
Absolutely. Everything. And not just spiritually, but for me, I'm really seeing it like multidimensionally, like grow. And, I think that we tend to compartmentalize sometimes. And it's like our spiritual life's over here and our mental life's over here and emotions and physical is here. It's like, for me, what creative alchemy has taught me in many ways too is like, life is asking for all of me, for everything down to a cellular vibration. It is asking for all of me to activate, embody, right? Talking about applied epigenetics, to activate and embody and be in alignment for my own ascension, for my own self-expression. So tell us a little bit. I took you through the creative alchemy process, and I see your painting, one of your paintings behind you. Tell us a little bit about what that was like for you.
Wow. Well, I went into it totally open to all possibilities and miracles. And meeting you, I have to also take into that category of miracles and possibilities, because like we talked about, everything is divinely orchestrated. Yeah. And everything is being sort of brought to you as an opportunity. And so when we met and we started talking, and I got more to know about your work, and then you were involved or wanted to know more about epigenetics, and I just thought there was a perfect vibrational frequency there between the two. You offered me an opportunity to experience your work, and we did last week. And I have to tell you, it was an experience that came from within. It wasn't something outside, because we went into a visualization or a meditation or however it is that we connected to an intention, and then we allowed that in the terms of a frequency to surface through my body, through my hands, through the paint, onto the canvas or the paper. And it was totally detached from any preconceived art or any type of figures or paintings or anything that I thought would come up. So it all came up from within. And when I looked at it at the end, it just blew me away. Not that the painting was beautiful in itself, which I think it was, but the intricacy and the little stories that were in the painting were all part of what it is that surfaced. And I like to look at it is one of the intentions was not just to get in touch with the low vibrational frequency and release it. My intention was to clean it, to heal it.
Yeah.
And so the painting expressed that.
Yeah.
To raise it. So the painting wasn't dark and fairy-like or fearful or full of demons. It didn't come out that way at all. It came out alive. It came out with a high frequency.
It came, if I remember correctly, the words that we used at the like a jazz brunch in New Orleans, like it was a celebration, you know?
Yeah. Yes. And so to me that was it was like reading an X-ray to see the difference from before and now. You know, if you look at an X-ray, a technician can see what it is that needs still to be healed and what has been healed. And so it gave me some perspective on the work that I
started off with some density. Let's be honest. Like for those of you that are watching that haven't experienced creative alchemy, because it's so experiential, right? You're dealing with your feelings, your emotions, your pain, your vibration, and physical pain and symptoms. Wherever we're storing density or resistance or a charge or a trigger. So, we started off like giving voice and expression and a release of that vibration. And just the fact that, and I'd love to hear your experience of this, but just in the effort of expressing it and giving it a voice and honoring it, it shifts, right? Starts to, depending on.
It inspired me to do more. And it also gave me a different perspective on my own abilities, talents, and gifts to be an artist.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
I had something within me that I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, I'm not talking about a Rembrandt or a Picasso or a Dali. That's not the art that I'm doing. We're doing
art
alchemy.
From the heart.
And art from the heart. Yeah, I love it. And I have to tell you, I was exhausted after I finished. I felt the energy, the surge, the movement from within come up. To really, like my second painting, which I did by myself, I had to take breaks in between and rest because I was physically drained.
Yeah, I think
to me, I missed that last word. What? I didn't hear the last sentence that you said.
Well, I want to hear what you have to say. To you, what? Like you felt drained? What is that to you? So I wanted to speak to that.
Oh, I felt physically tired.
Yes. Well,
like running, like I just ran a marathon.
Well, and internally you did because you unleashed all that creative life force, right? All that energy that was dormant. When we start opening up those creative channels and connect to source and that nonverbal, and that's the other thing I love about painting as a multidimensional modality, it's nonverbal. So it can go to the heart. It can go to the soul of things very quickly, right? It bypasses the mind and goes into that, a lot of people will say the inner child realm or the heart realm or the soul. Like it goes into, or the subconscious, the dream world very, very quickly. And so it's easier to shift things in that space too. And I think that's the other reason why, as a modality, creative alchemy is so efficient. It's so quick because it's moving rather quickly. It's moving things very, very quickly.
Now, let me tell you something else that may have been a contributor to the way I experienced it through the art was that I've been basically in pain with my back for a long time. It's one of
Yeah.
the physical gifts that the universe has given me to rise above, obviously. So it's about acceptance of everything, and I've been working with it every second. But what I want to say is that the next day I wasn't experiencing any pain.
Right. And that's what we worked on. Yeah, it's so powerful.
Now I'm doing a lot of different things as well.
Sure.
I'm just doing a lot of whatever comes my way. But I have to tell you that I really feel that the painting was very instrumental
Well,
and
so
added to.
let's talk about that from an epigenetics vibrational therapy perspective, because I think it's important to kind of chew on this a little bit. Why do you think that is?
Well, first of all illness, physical or emotional, is at least 95% created by frequencies that are out of tune with the harmony of the universe. Okay?
Yeah.
So I always say, if you picture the universe as a symphony, an orchestra, a life orchestra. And if you want to play in life's orchestra, you have to be fine-tuned. If you're not fine-tuned because you're the instrument, you're going to stand out. You're going to actually compromise the harmony of the universe. And which is what it does, because we're all vibrational frequencies. Just as high vibrational frequencies goes out to the universe and affects the holographic and structure of life, so do low density vibrations. And if you notice, I don't say good or bad vibrations, because
Right.
vibrations are either good or bad. They're either low frequency or high frequency. So high frequency vibrations affect the consciousness of the morphogenic field that surrounds each cell. And so when you're in doubt and you're in worry and you're in turmoil and you're in conflict, what is compromised is the morphogenic field with low density vibrational frequencies that the DNA reads and then sends out instructions to have the body give adrenaline and cortisol and all the things that break down your immune system. It's the fight or flight syndrome going way back to, the beginning of mankind. And and so that field, that consciousness field, is compromised, and that's what's read by the membranes of the cell, and that is communicated to the DNA. And so it's really important to understand how and what influences that field. And that's what epigenetic is. The awareness of what it is that influences the morphogenic field. Right.
It's powerful. And I think, in terms of your painting experience and experience with creative alchemy, in my observation, and again, I'd love to hear your experience with this, or hear your story about it, but witnessing you open up that channel of creativity and life force from within, right? Like that in itself. And if you think about, I always talk about how healing energy, creative energy, sexual energy, it's all the same life force. It's all life force energy, right? So when we are it's all consciousness, but it's a force, right? It's a Shakti Kundalini. I mean, you could sit there and everybody has a different name for it, but there is a force, there is a flow, and when you open up that valve, like my experience of witnessing you in that first creative alchemy was just really like opening up that life force in a different channel, in a different way of expressing it, really raised the frequency of your experience and shifted you out of that denser, tight, back pain that we started from, that you were experiencing, that we were working with, and in the cauldron of the creative fire, really was able to lift it and almost like rewire and repattern a whole different experience. And which you felt in your physical body.
Absolutely.
Which you
absolutely. It's like putting, yes. It's like putting high test in your engine. And it nourishes every cell of your body. Every cell. And consequently, when you have a negative, when you're thinking in terms of low density frequencies, what it is comes in, and that's where I was saying before, 95% of all disease is based in your perception of yourself in relationship to life. It's directly related to self-love.
Absolutely. And what you said about your relationship to life, I talk about this. I just did a video about this the other day. It's like, do you feel like life is happening for you or to you? Meaning like, do you feel like you are a victim of your life or a conscious creator?
Well, I used to be a victim, big time. And
me too. Still am on occasion.
Now,
I have to watch myself.
Sometimes it's difficult to accept, that life is giving you a gift, especially when you're in pain, because the pain robs you of the opportunity of embracing joy. And so it's difficult to see through the clouds. But it is important to know that the sun is always in the blue sky, above the clouds. And that's where we have to start to focus. And so when we're in the pain, when we're in the turmoil, when we're in the conflict, when we're in the mind's grasp, it's really important to reach above and to know that that is the illusion, that that is the story, that the sun is still shining, and that the truth and the reality of everything is who you really are. Pure joy and pure love. And I keep reminding myself, no matter how much I work on myself, I constantly have to remind myself who I really am.
Yeah.
And not just believe it, because belief doesn't work. This belief holds skepticism and doubt. And beliefs change. One moment this is great for you, and the next moment you get a divorce. One moment you buy this beautiful car, and the next moment it's in the shop. And so beliefs change. So if beliefs change, how can it be real? If something that's real doesn't change. It always is, always was, and always will be the same. So I eliminated belief from my vocabulary. And I substituted with trust. This trust is an all-powerful, high vibrational frequency that is real. Because it's based on the principles of the universe, not the laws of man, but the laws of creative intelligence. And that's where we have to live. We have to live in that world of creative intelligence. And we have to stay plugged in to the vibrational frequencies that allow us to reach our fullest potential. And that's what experiences are. That's what opportunities are. And that's what life is. It's an opportunity for us to embrace and physically feel love.
Yeah.
That's a gift. The soul gives itself.
That goes back to to me, I see it as like an activation. It's already within. We have to remember, we have to activate it. And I think these modalities can, really activate that vibration within it. A lot of these tools, and the ones that you mentioned as well, that can impact our epigenetics and really teach us how to shift and alchemize our vibration and move up the vibrational scale into these higher frequencies so that we can, tap into that, ultimate creative potential and vitality and evolve as a planet.
Beautifully said. Yes. That's what we're here to do.
So I want to open up, yes, and I want to open up to the group. I don't know if anyone's watching us live because it's kind of hard for me to see who's watching right now, but see if there's anyone that has any questions for us, just write in the comments below. And if nobody has any questions, maybe Mana will agree to come back and we can have another conversation about epigenetics and continue our discussion and share and kind of chew on some of these things that, are really impacting and really providing us with a quantum shift in the way that we view ourselves and each other and our work in the world.
Well, I would love that. And I didn't go into scientific detail about epigenetics, but I just wanted to, bring forth the magnitude of knowing what it is that influences your vibrancy and your radiance, and how you can choose love over unlove, and how that can affect your way your DNA expresses itself to every cell in your body, nourishing it in a high frequency vibrational environment, nourishing it and bringing you to your fullest potential in every aspect of who you are. And that's how important epigenetics really is, in the short.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's so important about that, Mana, is that the truth is medicine is changing, right? Healthcare, wellness, we are stepping into an era where we have to take responsibility for our own health care and well-being and our own vibration. And that's what's so exciting about creative alchemy and all these other multidimensional modalities and epigenetic therapy and vibrational medicine, is that we have the power to affect our own and activate our own evolutionary well-being, our growth, our evolution, by taking responsibility for our own frequency and what we are channeling, creating, and emitting.
And no better time than the evolution of mankind is now to understand that and to ride that wave. I call it riding the divine. Okay. Yeah. And just getting on that wave of consciousness and riding it. And the universe is supporting it now. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 50 years ago, the frequency on this planet was different. And it was more difficult for the collectiveness to get into that way of being.
Yes.
Right? But today it's being supported by the new frequency, and it's the timing. You want to look at timing. I rather use the word synchronicity rather than timing. Is in its perfect. Like that. It's in its perfect place, and it's a dance. It's everything is a dance, and we are dancing to the tune of frequency that allows us to experience why we came here to begin with.
Yeah.
And that is to experience and embrace the vibrational frequency of love.
Beautiful.
As a physical being.
To create.
And your paintings are an expression of that. Everything is an expression of that. And the more I get into the painting, the more I realize how much more there is to embrace.
Yes, beautiful.
I'm just at the beginning. I'm a neophyte here with you. And so I'm looking at welcoming the miracles that await me. And I believe that your work is a very important part of the epigenetics of painting. It's
Yeah.
a vibrational frequency that you're bringing forth that you can physically, see. I try not to interpret it because that's the mind. Okay. I have to trust it, and that's the heart.
Yes. Beautiful. And it's also, the color and image and archetype and symbol and form is the language of the soul, you know? So I think, sometimes messages do come through those symbols in the paintings, and that's just a deeper, language that you get to have
So
with your
many,
own.
so many little storyboards in those paintings. In
Yeah.
fact, what I did as an experiment was I took a picture of the painting and I picked a segment of the painting and I blew it up. Okay. And I was amazed what was inside that painting. Something that you didn't see when you looked at the whole painting in its entirety.
It's like the microcosm of the macrocosm. Beautiful.
Exactly. So there were hundreds of little storyboards there, and each one was in perfection.
Well, yeah, and think about as you're releasing, these denser kind of discords or imprints or pain patterns or karmic patterns or, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't even matter what we call it. It's like you're releasing the impact of that discord, right? And everything along with it. So pretty cool. Pretty cool. Well, on that note, I want to thank you so much for being here today and sharing this time with me and sharing all of your wisdom and your experience with us on epigenetics and vibrational therapy and your experience in the creative alchemy process. And will you come back and talk with me again and do another interview sometime soon?
Anytime you want.
Great.
I'm here.
Awesome.
I enjoy it.
Yeah,
Thank you so much
me
for
too.
allowing me and giving me this opportunity to meet all your followers as well.
Yeah, and if you're watching this in the replay, I want to tell everyone, if you're watching this in the replay, post some questions and Mana and I will get back to you. If you have any thoughts or comments or questions about epigenetics, let's get a good, juicy conversation going. And we'll come back.
We're a good team here, and maybe we can bring some light into the darkness where people may be having some difficulty in crossing the threshold. And that's my work right now, by the way, is to guide one over the threshold into the new vibrational frequency. Because we're all at the door. We're all at the portal, or however you want to look at it.
Well,
but what is holding us back?
It's a mastery process, it's really learning to master your own energy. It's all an energy game.
It is. But don't forget, the impetus is self-love. The more you devote yourself to it, and I use the word devotion, the faster and the easier it's going to be for you to navigate what it is that's yet to come.
On that note, thank you, Mana.
Okay, my dear.
Aloha.
Have a beautiful day, and
we'll
speak to you. I trust.
Soon. So much.
Okay.
Lots of love.
Bye now.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.